Hey, welcome back to GT Canada. Today we are talking about controller drift on the PlayStation 5. Now, some of you may have already caught wind that users are reporting having drift issues come up in as early as 10 days after the purchase of their new controller. I wanted to take a minute just to kind of talk about what controller drift is and why we're seeing it on the PlayStation 5 and the class action lawsuit that has been logged against Sony for controller drift and what my thoughts are on that lawsuit. First of all, what is controller drift? Well, quite simply, it's when the analog stick never goes quite back to the home position where it normally would. So this is going to be an exaggeration. If it was always over like this, for example, and you were playing a game where there's a character on screen, well, your character would start walking kind of up and to the left because that stick never goes home. Now, it's not going to be stuck all the way over here like this, but what happens is instead of being straight at home like this, it's just a little bit off. And that little bit is enough to make it so that your character just creeps ever so slowly forward or to the left or to the right or whatever. With the team that I play Warzone with, one of the players, he actually has his controller right here, the up button, has a little bit of forward drift. And we were actually in a match and he had to run and move his laundry or something. So he lied down in a spot and ran to do his laundry. Well, while he was lying down, his controller drift caused him to start army man crawling slowly forward. And he's going forward and forward and forward, and we're all kind of standing there trying to protect this guy while waiting for him to come back. And by the time he came back, he had actually crawled right out into the middle of this open area on the map because of the controller drift. It is a problem, there's no doubt. Controller drift is a problem. But why is everybody talking about the PlayStation 5 controller and why it is so bad for controller drift? I think a lot of this is actually just haters that want to say bad things about a product. Why do I say that? Well, if you look at, here's my PlayStation 5 controller. Do you notice how the thumbstick looks? Compare that to my PlayStation 4 controller. Do you notice how that thumbstick looks? And when I put them side by side, the one thing that you will notice is that the thumbstick looks identical. And the reason it looks identical is because it actually is. The teardowns of a PlayStation 4 controller and a PlayStation 5 controller have revealed that the analog component is exactly the same. Not similar, but the same. So Alps is the brand that makes and supplies the analog stick. And coincidentally enough, Alps is the same analog stick used in the PlayStation 4, the PlayStation 5, and the Xbox, all of the series of Xbox controllers. Now with that in mind, think about controller drift on the PlayStation 5. People are trying to make it sound like it's a rampant and crazy issue that Sony should know about, and so they've logged a class action lawsuit. I don't believe that lawsuit's going to get very far, and here's why. This is not the same as the lawsuit against Nintendo for controller drift, because Nintendo actually designs their own analog stick for the Switch, and it also is known to have drift issues, and Nintendo have done a very good job of actually addressing the controller drift to the point that they are taking a lot of money out of their own pockets to cover shipping and replacement of a controller that shows a drift issue. In the case of the PlayStation 5 though, this can't be an issue strictly with the PlayStation 5. And that's what this lawsuit is trying to single out, to say that the PlayStation 5 has a controller drift issue and Sony should do something about it. The fact that it's the same component as the PlayStation 4, where's the lawsuit against the PlayStation 4 controller drift? There isn't one. There might be one going against the Xbox right now. That would get deferred, or it should get deferred to the component provider and not to Sony so much as the company that is providing the components to make that controller. So when we talk about the controller drift on the PlayStation 5, it does not seem to be as big of a problem as what some people are trying to say. I've done my own research and I can only find a small handful of users that have talked about controller drift being a problem. Personally, on my PlayStation 5, It is not a problem. I know a few other people who have a PlayStation 5 and they also have no problems with controller drift. What I do know is that on my PlayStation 4, I typically go through a PlayStation 4 controller once every year based on the gaming that I do. I'm not a professional gamer, as you would know if you've watched me on Twitch, and if you haven't, you can check out my Twitch link below and see if I'm any good at all. The part of the controller that always wears out for me is not the analog stick, it's actually the L3 button, and you can hear me pushing it down there, and that's for running. And that's because I've noticed I actually have a habit of, while I'm going forward, is just always tapping the L3 button to make sure that I'm always running, because if you back off a little bit, you stop running, then you got to push forward again, then push the run button again. So I just have developed a natural twitch or a habit of just pushing that L3 button a lot. So that's what wears out on mine. And then I also end up with a little divot right here, wears in from pushing forward so much. But the analog part itself always has worked fine for me. It never gets twitchy or anything like that, even after a year of slightly more than casual gaming. The issue of controller drift is not as big of an issue as what some news outlets and YouTube channels would try to make you believe on the PlayStation 5. It is a problem for a very small number of users, which in that case, I hope they sort it all out through warranty or whatever. But I don't think that we're going to be seeing anything as widespread as what we do with the Switch. Some of you may have noticed my controller doesn't look quite right. I have added my own back buttons onto my PlayStation 5 controller. If you haven't seen the video on that, I do have one up over here that shows you the install and my review on that. The bottom line is I still like using it and it's working really well for me. Again, it's just a real quick video talking about controller drift and PlayStation 5, trying to update you guys on where we're at with that. Really, there's no progress, and I think it's gonna die. It's just gonna go away. They're gonna find something else to complain about on the PlayStation 5. Hope you found this video interesting. We do have a lot of other great videos over here you can check out. We do hope to see you again, but until next time, have a great day.